Hey everybody, I'm Oliver Brown from Condesa Co.Lab. Here today for Two Mugs, I'm joined by not Stephen Bannister, but Harry Mcauley, who is our Central American specialist and is part of the sales team. And he and I are going to talk about today what we can expect from the specialty world, as well as doing a brief talk about where we are with the market. Harry, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Ollie. Big shoes to fill today, so I'll do my level best to live up to the high standards that you and Mr. Bannister have set.
I'm sure you'll manage it. No problem there. So let's start where we always start, with the market. Today we're at 186.80. We've seen it soften a little bit from earlier in the week. Again, it's hard to tell where it's going to go. Your guess is as good as mine in terms of what we're looking at, Harry.
Yeah, reading the tea leaves. Like you said, it's softened a little bit, but it's been trading sideways the last few sessions. We've not really seen too much volatility, but seems to be sitting kind of within the technical lows and highs that hasn't broken through anywhere yet. So we haven't really seen any big movement either way. The weather story hasn't really changed. All eyes are on Brazil waiting for the rains. It looks as though the medium-term forecast is pretty good. Looks like there should be a little bit of rain coming. There's already been a little bit of rain, but a bit more substantial rain towards the end of the month and into October, which would be welcome news. We've actually seen a couple of photos, from producers of where they've had a bit of rain and the flowering started. So once we see some more substantial rain, we should see a bit more widespread flowering, and that all important soil moisture levels picking up, which will turn those flowers into delicious coffee cherries.
Here's hoping. And on delicious coffee cherries, that definitely is your and my specialty. I thought it'd be interesting to sort of do a bit of a round the world in 15 minutes, if you can do that. And we can talk about some of the origins that we should start to be focusing on. I think there cannot be enough forward planning in today's climate. I think we've talked about the challenges of shipping. We've talked about the ramifications of we've got to be so organized for this new crop coming. So let's sort of start in Central America, where you're this is your specialty. I know you mainly cover Central America and Colombia. We haven't really talked much about Central at the moment, so let's sort of start there and talk about which origins we should be considering. And for example, if people have been used to Colombian, most people have Colombian in their blend, but they need to pivot to something else in order to fit a price point, where would you be sort of, what's giving great quality for value in that specialty space, and commercial space? Where do we go?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. As you said, Colombia's been a pretty set part of, a lot of Rosa's blends for a long time. It's been the, Brazil-Colombia duo, and, they've always been at least a part of most Rosa's blends. But as most of you watching have probably seen, the price of coffee in Colombia's been going up steadily for a couple of years. It doesn't look like slowing down. I guess to put it in perspective, the internal price of coffee in Colombia is traded in a weight called a carga, which is it's actually anecdotally the weight a donkey can carry on its back. 125 kilos of parchment, milled coffee, and the price of parchment of a carga of parchment in 2019 was around 700,000 pesos, which is below the cost of production, about the cost of production depending on where you are. Today it's about 1.9 million. So it's gone up, it's close to triple in 2 years. Not to mention the increase in the New York price is further complicating the matter. So prices have gone up a lot in Colombia. There's also been they've had the opposite problem to Brazil: too much rain, which is causing issues with crop cherry development and flowering, and also rust in a few regions. Even some regions that have a lot of producers have Castillo, Colombia varieties, Catimor even. They're all ostensibly rust resistant. These trees they're actually finding little bits of rust occurring because it's been so wet, which is leading to lower yields and putting a bit more pressure on the internal market. Lots of exporters have got contracts to deliver coffee to roasters or importers around the world, and there's a bit of a mad rush to cover all of their shorts and purchase the parchment that they need to mill to deliver, which is driving prices up more. So it's complicated for sure. It does have a big impact. I know lots of people might say that what happens in the commercial world doesn't impact specialty, but it definitely does. What we're expecting to see, and speaking to colleagues in Colombia about this, is that because the price of coffee, the internal price of coffee in Colombia is so high now, there's not a huge incentive for producers to do a lot of selective picking, have really close focus on drying, do multiple passes, because the price is so high now. The incentive is just to get the coffee off the tree and dry it as fast as possible to deliver it, get paid, because the prices are record levels. So there definitely will be a knock-on effect in the specialty world. It's harder to find producers wanting to do microlots right now for that reason.
And do you think we're seeing that? We're going to be seeing that. I mean, obviously we've seen that, and in Colombia specifically, there have been instances where we've seen specialty drop or access to specialty drop for that very reason. Are we seeing that in other Central American countries? I mean, let's look at Honduras for example. Mexico, El Salvador, Costa Rica. Are we seeing the same thing there, and would we expect to see it? Where Costa Rica is relatively speaking, and I'm big brushstrokes here, relatively speaking, more affluent. Would we expect to see that same thing with Costa Rica, or do you think it's not going to have the same ramifications there, or what?
I think it's a bit of a case by case. I mean, starting with you first mentioned Honduras, it's almost having the opposite effect in some ways. So last year leading up to the crop, there was when the market was still at 100 there or thereabouts, we'll call it. Producers weren't really willing to invest in fertilizer or any of the sort of pre-harvest that they needed to be doing. So the government actually was giving away fertilizer to coffee producers, which is not normal in Honduras. On the back of New York rally this year, or leading up to the New York rally this year, I think producers were not really thinking about fertilizing again. Prices have gone up, but they weren't at the levels that they wanted. But then the market goes to 220, and all of a sudden producers were thinking, wow, there's time to cash in. So there's a lot more people are now starting to fertilize. So we're kind of hearing that the expected yields this year might be up by 1 million bags or so from where people were talking 2-3 months ago, which is huge. So more coffee, generally speaking. We should see more quality as well. We should start seeing coffee being picked in Honduras quite soon in a couple of regions. Probably on the specialty side, we won't be seeing anything for a while yet. Probably picking at the end of the year into January, February. But on the the other sort of side of when you're talking on the intro, the when to start thinking about your procurement is now. That's one thing that we've the just in time let's think about what we want to be buying or roasting in 2 months ahead. I think those days are gone. I know you guys have been talking on previous episodes ad nauseum about logistics and the challenge of getting bookings, and generally how much trickier it is to be shipping and importing coffee these days as opposed to 2 years ago. But it's definitely the time now to be sort of thinking about what your wish list is, and because really we're in terms of Condesa and how we're doing things, we're being a lot more proactive. We're doing our buying a lot earlier. We're writing a lot of contracts for for specialty, not just for commercial, but specialty, including microlots and regionals, well in advance of harvest. So producers have already got contracts, or exporters have already got contracts to deliver to us, before the coffee's even been picked off the tree. And by having that sort of proactive, view on things, it gives, it's good for everyone. It gives producers the certainty that if I'm going to produce this microlot, I've got a buyer. It's a big risk to go and, specially pick, slowly dry, do a great process on a coffee without knowing that you've got a market for it. But we've already got a contract saying we're taking delivery of this coffee. So please, set your price, and make it, as you can, as best as you can. But for us, it means that we're getting exactly what we want. We've already got our orders in. This is what we want to get made for us. This is what our roasters are asking for. Please go and do it. And here's a guarantee that we're going to take delivery. We're not going to pass. We're not going to say, oh, sorry, we expected an 87, it's an 86.5. We're not splitting hairs. This is an agreement that we have, and we'll always honor it. So it works. I think it works for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's that thing, like people, I think roasters have, it's not something you would traditionally do with microlots, and I think that headspace will have to change if people want to still see their, the coffees that they've had traditionally. They're going to have to start buying, forward like this, buying crops before, they're off the tree.
For sure.
Not something we see in the specialty so much. So yeah.
No, that's so true. I think we're lucky. I mean, we've got such good relationships now. I mean, I think, what are we, 8-9 years of doing this as Condesa, and it's taken a lot of time and a lot of hard work. And frankly, it's not always been great success. We've had some duds as well, and we've made mistakes. But we've got, I think our supply chain on this, both commercial and specialty, are both really good. We work with some amazing exporters, some amazing producers. We've got some really good, long-term relationships with a lot of, really good coffee people. So it's not, it is risky in some ways, but it's kind of not. Like, these are people that have constantly been delivering excellent quality for, year on year. It doesn't feel like a risk for me. It's kind of feels like a no-brainer, actually. It's risky to leave it and, miss out. Especially if you know what you want and you can just articulate it. And it's the way forward, especially while we can't travel. There's no, let's go and cut, see what's on offer. It's not, I don't see us getting on a plane internationally for a little bit longer.
Yeah, despite what Qantas would like to tell me.
Exactly. Exactly. All those points that are just sitting there gathering dust.
It's totally changed the way in which, obviously it's changed, the way in which, we can travel and therefore buy, and again, I think, whether it be, relationship with a really good origin partner, sister company, or, producer, Camille, Luis, from Brazil, whatever, having those relationships, it's so key that we can trust them. And we know that they've got our back and they know exactly what our cut profiles and expectations are. It makes such a difference.
Oh, totally. I mean, it definitely, and that it's that, and being super proactive and organized. I mean, I think we're about to start planning our Ethiopia buying, and we've literally just finished landing Ethiopian coffees from last year. Honestly, it's a 12 months process. We think this time last year we were writing contracts, or not quite writing contracts, but getting our ducks in a row, so that as soon as the the coffee and tea board releases the pricing rules for this year, or for the start of the season, then we can start executing and writing contracts.
It's supposed to be mid-October traditionally, isn't it? I think.
It's about right. I think there should be some fly crop coming in pretty soon. I don't know. I think there'll be like some wash coffees that we'll be getting cuts. It'd be good. We'll get a decent idea. I suppose for those listening, there's a small fly crop about now. I think is that right, Ollie? Where you can usually get a pretty good idea of what the season's going to look like based on that kind of quality. It's usually not going to be as good as the main crop, but you can use it as a benchmark for what to expect for come December, January.
Yeah, I think Gato always says if you cut the fly crop, you can add like 2 points and you know that the main crop is going to be that bit better. So I know he's doing that now, and traditionally, the main crop starts in November. So we do have that little bit of time to, as you say, start those conversations and get them early. But I think what's key is, without a shadow of a doubt, Ethiopia is our most challenging origin, and it's the most challenging origin when we can travel. When we can't travel, it's just that much more important that anyone who wants to get in on their Ethiopians needs to do so now, basically, or at least start that conversation.
For sure. I mean, I think since the ECX's relaxer rules on direct trade and the vertical integration model, it's more important than ever if you want to get something really interesting and really because you can now go to a point where it's, I want to buy coffee from this producer, this variety, this process, whereas a few years ago it was, just buy washed Guji because that's all I can buy. But now you can really make a wish list of, as long as you've got the right partners to go and work with, you can really have your own wish list of what you want. And then it's a matter of going out and proactively saying, hey, so-and-so, this is what I'm looking for. These are the volumes. These are the qualities. Let's make it happen.
I think, that really surprised me last year, actually, because I know one of our customers did a shopping list. And I sort of was thinking in the back of my head, there's no way they're going to be able to do that. And, the response is, yeah, of course. And they did it and they made it happen. And, the
coffees are amazing too.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it has sort of opened my eyes. And I know as you say, those listening, I think, if you want to try something weird and wonderful, put the idea out there and, they'll give it a go. I'm not promising everyone will, but certainly if you don't ask, I don't think you won't get. So I think it's that big key of putting your hand up, asking for asking what's possible, and then through our networks or through whatever networks you're using, seeing if that can happen. I'm very excited by Ethiopia this year.
Yeah, me too.
It's going to be very interesting. And another one, I think, obviously connected, on the same continent, we often think of Kenya and Ethiopia in the same headspace. I've not seen anything coming out of Kenya yet. I know we've started to have conversations with the team at Dormans and Mookie and started to sort of work out how we might do next year, but we're not quite there with Kenya, are we?
No, not quite. I mean, we've got a little bit of time. I mean, I don't think the auctions are going to be starting for main crop for a bit. But it's definitely again, you can't be too prepared. I suppose we're lucky. Dormans, our sister company, is very well known, very well respected. Specialty and commercial, Kenyan, Tanzanian trading house. But a big part of their CMS network is working with factories year on year. They are the marketing agent for a lot of really well-known factories and mills that a lot of roasters want to buy year in, year out. So I suppose by being a little bit, knowing what you want in advance, you can sort of put your orders in and hopefully even circumvent the auction system. You pay a premium to get what you want, but if they're amazing coffees. If you really want, I don't know, Gothithi or something, you just put in your sort of your volumes and the screens you want. And the quality team there are so good. They're picking out great lots. We've been so lucky in the previous couple of years without being able to travel, of just getting some amazing coffees. Leaning on Mookie and Andres and others.
It was a big one, wasn't it, this year? Because we weren't normally that's I go and select the coffees off the table, but it was so interesting. We couldn't do that. We didn't do that, and yet quality was just as good as when you actually you're forced into that position to let go of the reins. everything was fine, and you know, it was really interesting to see how that played out for me last stroke this year.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I think it worked really well in the end. I think you know, it'll be interesting to see once, you know, international travel is a thing again. But I mean, I think it will permanently change the way that we look at buying coffee.
Yeah,
I think there'll still be travel, but maybe not every year. Normally, this time you're in, you know, come January, February, you're in Kenya and Ethiopia, and I go to Central America, and we high five at the airport on the way home. But, you know, maybe we won't have to do it every year. You know, we've got these relationships.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The other origin I wanted to sort of end on, because we're sort of, you know, we're getting to our 20 minutes here, is Burundi. I know you've been tasting them on the table. You've been tasting the pre-ships, and you know, we've got an exciting range of, you know, obviously the wash lots. But this time around, more specifically, really interesting natural lots. Tell us what's happening there as well, and when we can expect to be seeing our Burundis.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to go in and cut the. They weren't even quite the pre-ships. They were just taken straight off the drying beds. Hadn't been hand sorted, hadn't been milled properly yet. So it was a very early peek under the curtain, I suppose. But yeah, coffee is tasting really good. I mean, the harvest this year was really small. It's like 60% down on normal. And you know, it's a real challenge. You know, getting the volumes that we want, but just generally speaking, I mean, we bought the entire mill, you know, production from some mills, and it's like 25 bags, and usually it's you know 2-3 containers. So yeah, I mean, for us it's disappointing, but it's, you know, really hard for producers who, you know, that's a big you know loss to not be able to be you know producing that coffee this year. But yeah, look, I mean, the quality is really good. Like I said, super early days, really fresh, hadn't been all cleaned up yet. But yeah, coffee is tasting really good, really excited. Lots of our favorite mills are back again this year. There's also a few new mills doing some naturals. For those
so what would have you been like on the old versus the new? What would be your pick? You're allowed to be biased.
Oh, it's like picking a favorite child. I don't actually have children. Can you do that, Ollie? You got a few to pick from.
No.
The Curacao was tasting really good. It's an old favorite, Curacao Natural. So we've got a couple of lots coming from Curacao. It's really like jammy violet, like red fruit, kind of sticky coffees. I really enjoyed that. On the new stuff, the Kionza I really liked. So this is a new mill to the project. They've only joined the project this year, the Akala project, in a different region, which is great because it's just, you know, a lot of these other mills, they're all distinct, but they're all in the same, you know, similar regions. So the profiles are close, but this has definitely got more of that kind of tropical, like mango, kiwi profile, which is really cool. So I'll be really interested to see how that that kind of progresses.
Kionza's northeast, is that right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but it's an really interesting profile, nice counterpoint to the other stuff that you know, we all know and love. Yeah, the outturn, I don't know how big that lot is, but I mean, we've got some of the natural lots are like 4 bags or 6 bags or something, and that's the entire production for the year. So there's not a lot of coffee for some of them, but you know, what's there is really good.
Yeah, exciting. So, I was very jealous when you went to cut those.
Yeah, it's good.
You're you know, like our lab second. So yeah, it's killing me being in Adelaide, not being able to taste, you know, look behind the curtain like you. So cool, very cool. Thank you very much for that, Harry, for the very quick whirlwind stock tour. I know we haven't covered everything, but I know we'll also get you back to go into detail as we start sort of locking things in. Again, anyone who's watching, if you've got any questions you'd like to answer, or you'd like us to answer, please post them on the link. And yeah, thanks very much for joining us, Harry.
Thanks for having me.